Welcome in Saturday morning on the Weekend Huddle, 102.5 The Game. Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier, Christian Skelton, and yes, Brandon Bigsby. Right here broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Christian, it's us two again. Oh, that is my computer. Whoops. It's us two, and then look to the right, and it's Brandon Bigsby. What's up, man?
Man, doing well. First episode officially with you and Christian. Beautiful morning outside. Happy to be here, man. I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of great stuff we got to talk about on tap today. And we're here, man. We're here. I've been so excited for this all week. Big shout out to Chase for giving me the opportunity. Thank you to you and Christian for welcoming me on. And shout out to Connor Nute as well, because he obviously made the move up to weekdays, got called up to the big leagues, as we called it. He's killing it on the 6. I know we'll hear from him a little bit later. So big shout out to him as well. Big shoes to fill, but I'm excited to be joining you guys, man. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, as always, the Weekend Huddle, you can catch us 9 to 11 a.m. on Saturdays, and it's just going to be a blast. I mean, it's predominantly football because football's back in season. Titans had their blue and white scrimmage last night. Like you said, we'll get to Connor Nute at 9:45. And, a little bit of college football information going on, right? A little bit of some start of the fall camp, as some may say. Vandy has a little bit of a quarterback situation. Maybe Tennessee has a quarterback situation. I don't know. But no, this is going to be fantastic. What's going on in your world, Bigsby? Start off the day a little bit.
Man, I mean, doing well. Last night was out for Lipscomb Academy's scrimmage. They played against Antioch, so got to see the 4-star quarterback, Andre Adams. He looked really, really good. Every bit of the piece. I think maybe even better than what he was last season. Then got home, saw some of the Titans clips. Obviously, they didn't end till like 9:30 because it was a lightning delay. But went home, got to see a lot of the Titans stuff as well, and I was happy with everything that kind of seemed to come out. Looked like Cam Ward had a really good day, which was nice. And like Io Manor being out there was huge. I know there was a lot of concern with him with the injury. And then during the night, just kind of wound down, prepare for the day's show, and we're feeling good, man. I'm juiced up. I'm ready to go. Weekend Huddle, baby. Let's go. I'm feeling excited.
I love it. Christian?
Yeah, I remember last year when I did a lot of Greg Pogue, it seemed like every week it was Andre Adams was the player of the week. So it does not surprise me that he's still on fire. But yeah, happy to be here. Happy to have Bigsby. I was pleasantly surprised to hear the imaging actually had the correct names. I was ready for it to still say Connor Nute, but that was a good surprise. That was nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're locked and loaded on the Weekend Huddle, man. And to y'all's point about Andre Adams, like seeing him last year in person doing those Metro games of the week, you're right. He was every bit of the part. I'm curious, did he have any extra meat on his bones this year?
He looked like he was a little bit bigger than last year. So Lipscomb Academy, they scrimmaged against Antioch last season as well. And I think that he definitely looked noticeably bigger in terms of his frame. I think that the other part that was really impressive too is that it looked like just the decision-making was a lot quicker from him as well. There were a lot of times where when he didn't see something open, he would have no problem taking off and running himself. And that's something that he's always had the ability to do. But I think that especially at the high school level, it takes time to kind of develop that innate sense of when to take off and run, when it's the right time to just sit in that pocket. And he's a good pocket passer. That was something that really, really impressed me with him. And also Lipscomb Academy looking really good as well. Trent Dilfer being back this year. They have a lot of new faces, but a mix of returners as well. So two teams that I'm really, really interested to see what happens with. I'll be calling the Lipscomb Academy games this year, so I'll be really up close with them. But Antioch coming off of a 10-2 season is going to be really fun to see how they follow that up, especially with Andre Adams being a senior, moving to Colorado next year under Coach Prime. So a lot to look forward to. Was happy to go and see that last night.
Yeah, and Arcente Broom is the head coach over there at Antioch. He's always been a consummate pro, especially at the high school level. Even when he's at John Overton and now going to Antioch, he's just been fantastic everywhere he's been. So yeah, Andre Adams has been one of the top quarterbacks, if not the top quarterback in the state of Tennessee. Like you said, he's committed to go to Colorado. And we'll see where he goes from there. There are a lot of other offers: Arkansas, Auburn, Cincinnati, Florida State. I know last year when I was there, they had Mississippi State and Michigan State watching him on the sideline.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a handful of teams that are probably looking at him.
Yeah, Vandy was in on him for a while, too, prior to the Jared Curtis commitment, obviously. There was a lot of smoke that could have been where he ended up going, potentially wanting to stay home. But I like Colorado as a fit for him. He is a guy that, again, has the size, still can be mobile, but he still is that true pocket passer despite having that athleticism. And it's something that can be kind of lost nowadays. It feels like is that true quarterback that can stick in the pocket, make reads, and make decisive decisions to hit their receivers at that right time, because it is such a quick moving game now. Guys rely on their feet almost too much at that level. And it feels like with him, yeah, sure, he can take off and run, but it's not what he relies on. It's not a necessity for him. He likes to be able to sit there, pick apart a defense, and make that right read and hit him in stride.
Yeah, and you mentioned, making those quick decisions last night, the blue and white scrimmage at Nissan Stadium for the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward making quick decisions, having a lot of checkdowns to Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, that is, more to Tony Pollard. Obviously, the clip that's circulating the interwebs is Connor Tate's one-hand snag in stride. I mean, holy cow. I think Titans fans are really excited for this year.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing, too, is that for Cam Ward to have had that performance last night specifically, you kind of knew that that was going to be what charged his fan base up, because in practices, the report's been, okay, he's been good, but it's been inconsistent, right? He'll have one practice where it's like, okay, Cam Ward looks like he's taking a step up. Then he'll have the next day where, I know Wednesday he had the 2 interceptions, and that made a lot of headlines. For him to go out with the fans there, big crowd, and to look the way he did, not even just in terms of the big plays, but for me, the checkdowns, the quick decision-making, the little fundamental things at the quarterback position that you were hoping to see Cam Ward continue to develop, that is what really stood out to me, because we know that Cam Ward has the big arm. We know that he can improvise and make the big plays. It's the little fundamental mental side of being an NFL quarterback that we still wanted to see, okay, how has he improved on these things? That is what I think impressed me the most about him last night, was seeing that development in real time.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest takeaway from last night. It just seemed like no bad decisions more than anything. Like y'all were saying, just taking the checkdowns when they were there. And yeah, I am so excited about Connor Tate, because we've talked about that on this program before, how obviously whenever the pick was made, I don't want to say it seemed like a panic pick, but it definitely seemed like your second option behind Jeremiah Love, and it looks like a pretty good second option right now.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was really a second option in some sense. Like, I know there was the big hype around Love, but for me, I think it might have been Connor Tate the full way. Now,
really?
Like, going back and looking at it, maybe. I don't know. That's just me.
There's definitely a good chance of it, I think.
It might be a tinfoil hat move for me. I don't know. And we'll get into more of that tinfoil hat stuff later on. But, another name that kind of, I would say, comes to mind would be Peter Skoronski, yesterday signing that 4-year, $100 million deal, $88 million guaranteed. He spoke after the, blue and white scrimmage last night. And even Robert Saleh had some kind words to say about Peter Skoronski, quote, saying, "Money only makes you more than you already are." And I think that just speaks volumes, because Peter Skoronski has been nothing but a true pros pro. I think his rookie season was definitely growing pains. And he even mentioned it last night. He basically said a thank you to the previous regimes of Mike Vrabel, Brian Callahan, and even the GMs that were involved with all that, saying, "I'm glad they kept me at guard, because that really helped me develop as a true guard in this league." Whereas you see right now, you have guys like J.C. Latham, who started on the left side as a left tackle, then moved to right tackle at his natural position, and has been dealing with some injuries from time to time. Now he's been back on the field trying to get back to his old self. But I think that's why we're seeing so much improvement year in and year out from a guy like Skoronski.
Yeah, and I think the part about that announcement that stood out to me, 4 years, 100 million, 88 of it being guaranteed. So not only is that a huge commitment, but that's also resetting the guard market on top of it. And it's the second time in less than a month that the Titans have reset the market at a position. Remember, Jeffrey Simmons becoming the highest paid defensive tackle just a month ago. So to have that level of commitment to Peter Skoronski, who I think not only deserves it, but it's so key for the Titans, because for so long we have talked about the one clear, glaring weakness of this team, really for the last 5 years, being the offensive line. And Peter Skoronski, ever since that rookie year, where again, it started out a little bit slow, but it takes time sometimes for these guys to develop as true NFL high-quality starters, and he kicked in from tackle on top of it. For him to be a homegrown offensive lineman, to develop into a guy that, again, stays past that rookie contract, something the Titans have lacked really over the last 5 or 6 years, I think that is such a huge thing for his franchise. And I don't think anyone can debate that Peter Skoronski deserves every penny of what he got. And not only that, but at this point, I think we can put they spent the 11th overall pick on a guard. We can put that to rest now. Peter Skoronski has been one of the most important pieces to this team. He's going to be a long-term valuable piece to this team. I think it made sense to go ahead and lock him up. I'm glad to see it happen as well before the season starts. So now that's done. That's dusted. You have your future guard right there who has been a borderline all-pro caliber player the last 2 years.
Yeah, and adding on to that, regardless of whatever pick you are in the NFL draft, if that team values you at that pick and you end up becoming a success story for them, the number doesn't matter. It simply doesn't. So for Peter Skoronski, he's definitely overcome the 11th overall pick. You drafted a guard. Who cares? Like you said, they have set him up for the rest of his career and also with the Titans. Like another thing that I thought was a big takeaway from Skoronski last night, and I think it was TD that asked the question, like talking about resetting the guard market. He said, I'm happy to be able to set the foundation for the next person. So again, it just goes to show you that's where the pocket starts, is in the interior part of the line. And then, you try to have somewhat competent left and right tackles that can kind of keep that pocket open until you can get a pass off.
Yeah, Skoronski kind of said it, and I guess we got to give some credit here. Shout out Ran Carthon, I guess. Yeah. I mean, he had we all know how many picks he had that didn't pan out here, but this is one that I think we can say was definitely a hit.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. You look at the previous regimes, like even when John Robinson was here, you could say that Jeffrey Simmons is the, I guess, golden child of that era. Maybe Skoronski is the golden child of the Ran Carthon era. You look at Mike Borgonzi's era, and it seems like there's not one specific golden child. It's just more of a collective unit that they have drafted that's actually panning out. So it shows that there's some competency back into the franchise, and they have a promising future ahead.
Yeah, and, going back to that point you mentioned about the guard thing, and I'm curious to kind of get both of you guys' thoughts on it. Do you feel like we've kind of reached a point now to where we kind of get paralysis by analysis when it comes to the draft and it comes to positions? I know that there's positional value that is higher at some spots than others. Like, obviously, you prefer the left or the right tackle being that guy at 11 that you pick and you sign that big money to a guard. But to me, I just want high-quality football players. Every piece of that line is important. And, Christian, you mentioned that Peter Skoronski, he kind of talked about last night why the guard is so important, because that's really where the pocket starts. It's not from the outside, it's from that inside. You got to block these guys like Jeffrey Simmons and Chris Jones and Derek Brown, and maybe Aaron Donald will be added to that list again here with the rate things are going. Do you feel like we've kind of reached the point where maybe we overanalyzed some of these positions? Like, oh, this one is worth it, but maybe this one isn't worth it with that high of a draft pick and then having to pay them later on?
I absolutely think so. I'm in the camp of the run game is the biggest priority in football. Again, that is a very old mentality, but it all starts with the offensive line. If you don't get a good push 3-4 yards off the ball, you're not going to get really anything in the game of football. So I think, it reminds me of, and I always bring this up with Joe or whoever on the airwaves, when the Indianapolis Colts signed Quentin Nelson to that long-term deal, and they ended up slowly adding their offensive line to long-term deals, that to me showed that they're truly invested in their run game. And they had a quarterback at the time that was Andrew Luck, that before, and it wasn't Quentin Nelson, it was a little bit before that. But when they had a quarterback that was, looking forward to investing with the future, then, he retires, whatever. They've always had that consistent pocket passing quarterback along with a really good run game. And I think that's what really solidifies you as a true franchise. And again, the Colts have been kind of in the murky middle. They've always been, hovering the wild card spot / playoff berth. But no, I agree with you. I think the offensive line should be valued a lot more than what it truly is.
I agree as well. I mean, Saleh talked about that last night as well. He was kind of like I'm more paraphrasing here than anything, but he was kind of just like, yeah, I mean, it just proves to me how valuable offensive line position is at this point. Because, if you don't have an offensive line, you don't have anything, as we've seen in this town for the last couple of years. So, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like having a good offensive line is kind of part of the identity of this franchise. Like, I feel like historically, if you've had a good team here, the offensive line has been one of the more important parts of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of want a comparison I use, it's kind of like a football team, especially the offense. It's kind of like the body, right? The offensive line, that's your heart. That's what keeps you beating. The quarterback, that's like your brain. Your skill positions are like your limbs. You need all three, but the offensive line is where so much of it comes from. It pumps that blood through. It's kind of the lifeblood really of your offense. It's great if you have elite wide receivers. It's great if you have a quarterback that can pick a defense apart. if he can't stand up straight for more than 2 seconds, we saw that with Cam Ward last season, it's not going to matter because he's not going to be able to read past 2 yards down the field. Or if you want to turn around, hand it off to Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears, they're going to be running into a brick wall every time with no space to run. So the offensive line, that is where everything starts from top to bottom. If you have the trenches locked in and that position group needs to be, and it is that quality, more times than not, even if you're not a flashy team, you're going to be a team that is contending to win games.
Absolutely. And you mentioned offensive line there and how it could possibly set this team up for the future, especially for Peter Skoronski. I'm curious to know, for our listeners and you guys as well, how important is it for the Titans this season to be successful? What does the perception of the franchise really, I guess, show to the rest of the fan base if this season is a dud, going into the new stadium with the new rebrand of everything, even including T-Rack in this case? Not a fan. We'll get to that maybe later. But no, we'll get all those thoughts and answers on the other side. 615-737-1025 right here on the Weekend Huddle on 1025 The Game. It does feel like the first time because it is right here on the Weekend Huddle with this trio of Brandon Bigsby, Christian Skelton, and myself, Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier. Back here on the Weekend Huddle, 102.5 The Game. Hey, keep up with our Titans training camp coverage on 102.5 The Game for the latest updates, player interviews, and more as we get you prepped for the upcoming Titans season. Coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Parman Energy, and the Music City Kickoff Game. Tennessee Brewworks, locally brewed, community-driven, and the official craft beer of the Titans off-season coverage on 102.5 The Game. So back here on Weekend Huddle, Brandon Bigsby teed this one up for us. And I was curious to get your thoughts on it because you're right. There is a perception about this franchise that it needs to produce this year. Because if you don't, I feel like you lose that original fan that grew up in this market like all three of us.
Yeah, and I think the part that makes this so interesting is the way I view it. There's been kind of three different eras of Titans football since, let's say, 2020. And I think it connects from GM to coach to quarterback. You had the John Robinson, Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill era. You had the Rand Carthon, Mike Vrabel / Brian Callahan, and then Malik Willis / Will Levis era. And now you have a completely clean slate of the Mike Borgonzi, Robert Saleh, and Cam Ward era. The last two eras did not go very well, especially the one prior to this, to where you had two straight losing seasons where you either had outright or tied for the worst record in the NFL. This is a franchise in the Tennessee Titans that, on top of it, has not made the playoffs in almost 5 years. It was 2021 the last time they made the playoffs. Technically 22 because they play in January, but 5 seasons by the time we get to playoff time. So, considering that it has been that long, considering that this team just overwent a complete overhaul in terms of the rebrand with the new logo, the new uniforms, you have Cam Ward coming into his second year, you have a new head coach, a GM that's in the second year, and a new multi-billion-dollar stadium that you just invested, and the announcement of the Super Bowl. Does this feel like the most important season in Titans history in terms of overall franchise perception? Because when you have that many things going on for that long, you have such a long losing stretch, it kind of feels like the Titans, they aren't there yet, but if you have another year to where you win, say, 3 or 4 games, Cam Ward doesn't look like the guy, and they're kind of stuck in the purgatory of being in the basement, you risk entering that territory that the Jets or the Browns or the Raiders have been in, the Bills before Josh Allen. What do you guys think about that? Because I think this, because of that, might be arguably the most important season that the Titans have had since being in Nashville.
I think the Titans have put themselves in a weird position. And when I mean weird, I mean like, yes, they're all about the rebrand. They're all about bringing in this new wave, new chapter of Titans football. You have a new GM, new coach, new coaching staff, a few new players from the draft. It's all brand new, kind of like all the song we came back with there. Everything's all new, first time for everything. I really hope for the Titans' sake that they produce this year, because if they don't, right now it feels like a brand new team. Like, I'm talking about a team that just entered the league. That's what it feels like to me. I could be wrong, but new jerseys, new mascot, and just a few new faces here and there. It just feels different. Like, it doesn't feel like the Tennessee Titans. Like, for me, and I'll bring the T-Rack emphasis into all this. To me, I grew up going to the Titans, radio shows at the O'Charlie's in Brentwood off of Church Street, I think is what it is. Yeah. I remember going to those, the Jeff Fisher shows. Those were fantastic. Brings a player, and even T-Rack was there. That to me felt like Titans football. Now I don't get that vibe anymore. It just feels, I guess the right word to use is corporate. I feel like this feels like a corporate, feeling to it. So for the product on the field, yes, to your point, I think it needs to be a massive production this year. Carnell Tate needs to be really good. Cam Ward needs to be really good. And you need to have some defensive standouts, which I think will happen.
Yeah, I think corporate's the right word there. And I think they're trying very hard to just make it like modern Nashville, if that makes sense. Like the way the logo looks, the way the new fonts on the field and the jerseys, and like the main Tennessee Titans font they've been using all over the place. That's the main way I've been looking at it. And the new T-Rack yesterday just brought that to full circle, in my opinion. I mean, what are we doing? I understand he looks more like an actual raccoon now, but that T-Rack look was so iconic. I don't understand why you would ever want to change it.
To be fair, that T-Rack, it looks like something you see at a convention. And I think you guys know what convention I'm talking about.
I was about to say, I think we know what convention you're talking about.
That right there, no thanks. I can't get on board with it. Whatever happened to the old T-Rack? I know Joe Rexford yesterday said he looked like a beaver. I think that T-Rack looked fantastic. I'm all about the old school T-Rack. I think, having it looks like, a burglar, like the Hamburglar. He has a little like eye mask. That's what I kind of looked at for T-Rack. I thought that was pretty cool. And they mixed it in with it being a raccoon. I thought it'd be great because it's a state animal. But, that's neither here nor there. Back to the perception of it, I'm with you 100%. The product has to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think on top of it, when I say perfect, I'm not saying that the Titans have to go from worst to first, that they have to be this 12-win team that goes out and wins the AFC South. I'm not saying that because I don't think that that's realistic. But to me, a successful season for the Titans, and I know that this is going to be a different definition for everybody. Like if you go and ask anyone on that field, a successful season is winning the Super Bowl. If you are an NFL team, that is your expectation. When you go into that building, that should be your expectation. I think for me, realistically, the Titans could win 5 games. But if Cam Ward looks like the guy, if Carnell Tate looks like he was worth the 4th overall pick, that he can be that alpha number 1 receiver, if J.C. Latham takes that step up like we were saying Peter Skoronski took in his 3rd year in the NFL, if some pieces on the defense like a Kevin Winston Jr. comes into his own, one of those edge rushers like Femi Oladejo or Keldrick Falk looks like a guy who can be launched. To me, if those things happen, the young pieces step up and look like future foundational pillars for this franchise, but the team wins 4 or 5 games, I'll take that. Because at least then you have something for the future to build on. I don't think that a successful season means the Titans have to go out and win 11 games. That's fine if they don't do that. But you have to give tangible steps and proof of concept that genuine progress is being made. Because I can't remember the last time that we've looked back on a Titans season and said, you know what? This was a good run for them. Maybe when they made the playoffs and lost to the Bengals and were the 1 seed, they haven't made it since. And it's been kind of a step back each season since. Can they take that step forward? And to me, if you don't, you risk being one of those franchises that are just seen as one of the basement teams that can't get themselves out.
Yeah, for me, the baseline of this team this year has to be 6 wins. I know you said 5. I know we're just kind of picking hairs at this point.
Yeah.
But I really do think 6 wins, you have to double your win total from last year. And realistically, I do think the expectation for this Titans team is to be competing for a playoff spot this year. I really do think that would set a true foundation going into the new stadium of, actually, if we compete for a playoff spot this year and they end up having a playoff berth, that sets a whole new reset in some aspects because it doesn't draw away the original fan like how all 3 of us were growing up. We were always, I'll speak for myself in this case. The Chris Johnson days, yes, those were fantastic. Then there was a stretch of time after that where the Titans were probably the bottom of the barrel. And then you had those, like you said, the Mike Vrabel days. Now you really have to have a solid season. And I really do think that's 8 or 9 wins this year competing for a playoff berth.
The over-under, by the way, is 6.5 for the Titans.
Wow,
season.
That's higher than I thought it would be. I figured it'd probably be like 4.5 or 5, somewhere around there.
My guess probably would have been about 5.5 because the schedule isn't necessarily an easy schedule. I know that they finished last in the division, but you kind of look at some of these teams they got to go up against. Philadelphia in week 2. The Giants are a team that are projected to take a significant step forward. Baltimore on the schedule. Cincinnati's not going to be a pushover. There's some tough games that they're going to have to play that are out of the division on top of obviously Jacksonville and Houston. So I feel like 6 wins to me is probably, if I had to put a hard projection of what I could see, that's probably what I would go with. I think I'm in your corner on that, but I don't think that a successful season has to be based on the win total. I think it is based on what you physically see from this team. Is there progress within the organization? Does Robert Saleh, for example, look like the guy to potentially lead this team for? It's things like that, I think, to where if you can take a step back in January 2027 and say, okay, they did make the playoffs. They finished, let's say, 7-10, 6-11, but Cam Ward looks like a franchise quarterback. Carnell Tate had 1,000 yards and maybe 8 touchdowns. If you have things like that happen, I think you can at least, it's the first time in 5 years or so that you can take a step back and say, okay, the Titans might actually have something.
Yeah, and you're able to look at it and say, yeah, we have something, but also, too, we don't have to go to free agency to go grab players. We can go to the draft and actually go to the draft pool and no longer have to spend extra money on players like Dan Moore Jr. in this case. That, I mean, if he's serviceable this year, that works. If he isn't, you can move off of him. But you make a great point there, Brandon. You really do. We'll get into a little bit more of some Titans as they go on to, I guess, joint practices in San Francisco. I think it's time to put the tinfoil hat on a little bit. The electric substation. People are wondering what on God's green earth is going on out there in San Francisco. And I'm one of those that will lead the pack of the tinfoil cap group. I do think it's a real thing. I think it's something to be concerned about. We'll get into more of that right here on the Weekend Huddle on 102.5 The Game. Taking you home here on the Weekend Huddle, 102.5 The Game. Brandon Bigsby, Christian Skelton, myself, Dr. Cray, Nick Frazier, kind of getting in and putting the tinfoil cap on in this case. The electric substation out there in San Francisco, right next to their practice facility. Did a little bit of a deep dive on this yesterday. So back in 1986 is when the substation was built. And then 2 years later, the 49ers practice facility was built next to it. So first off, shame on the franchise because that was probably cheap, money, cheap land. And also, let's use common sense here. do we not recall going to, brand new developments of like housing or new housing developments in like new neighborhoods? And if there's an electric substation, it's nowhere near the new developments, because it's always said never buy a house that's near a substation, never buy a house near an electrical power plant, never buy a house near, anything that is possibly harming to your body. Let's not buy a house next to that. So for the 49ers to have their practice facility next to an electrical substation, which let's give a little bit more in detail on this. The EMF, which is electromagnetic fields, causes soft tissue damage, allegedly. They obviously, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they brought in a scientist that has been unnamed from last season, at the end of last season, to investigate this. And they said it's a, air quotes, nothing burger. I disagree on that. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's hard to disagree just because the proof is right there. San Francisco, over really the last 3 or 4 years, has arguably been one of the most injury-riddled teams in the NFL. And you can argue whether that's just dumb luck or whether that is because of this whole substation thing. I'm no scientist. I'll be completely honest about that. That is something that people way smarter than me are able to figure out compared to that. But it does make you wonder, because this is not just a 1 year thing for San Francisco. It is a consistent year after year after year issue with this team where they suffer these soft tissue injuries. And after a while, you can't help but to wonder if that is what it is. And I mean, Nick, I'm looking at San Francisco's injury report right now. And I mean, we were joking around during the break. It looks like an attendance sheet from grade school. I mean, like, wide receiver, Jacob Cowling here, Khalil Dinkins present, Mikil Kamara, I'm here. Like, that is how deep this list goes on their injury report. It's almost 20 names long at this point, and we're only on August 8th. So it just, you can say it's a conspiracy and then it's a nothing burger. I'm sure that's what the 49ers as an organization would want you to think, because it looks negligent for them to have their training facility next to a substation, especially in a physically tolling sport like football, to where you are really having to rely on your joints and your ligaments. But I can't help but to wonder, man. I really can't, because to me, it doesn't seem like it's an irony at this point.
Yeah, looking at the way things are unfolding out in San Francisco, like you said, 20 of the players, 20% of the roster in this case.
I think I counted 27 just now.
Wow.
Yeah, it could be up to that.
It's incredible. Very sad. Unfortunately, Jordan James, local product, was one of those. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Christian, are you on the same page with me that you think this thing is real?
Oh, I definitely think it's real, because like once or twice, I mean, people are conspiracy theorists. It's going to happen. That's going to be out there. But at this point, there's enough data out there, in my opinion, that something's got to be up here. Because if nothing was up, this wouldn't continually keep happening as consistent as it does.
Yeah, 100%. And I look at this, I guess, injury report. Like you said, it's a teacher sheet for a classroom, but it makes you wonder, going back to Robert Saleh when he was there with the 49ers last year, when they had all those injuries on the defensive side of the ball and still had the production to get them into the playoffs defensively. It just goes to show you his system is all about having depth and a quick rotation. Like his mantra is playing fast and violent. Again, when you have that idea and the system allows you to just press the quarterback like that, that's why that system works. That's why you can rotate multiple people or multiple players through this system, and it doesn't, have a hiccup in some sense.
Yeah, I think that had such a big piece to do with why San Francisco was so successful with Robert Saleh, because the way that he likes to coach his defenses, even if you go back to his time with the Jets, is that there is a lot of rotation there, especially on the defensive front. That also means more snaps, more opportunities, and more comfort for guys that maybe in some other schemes and systems would not get that same fit. Well, when you're a team like San Francisco, and it seems like everyone's ligaments are blowing up left and right, that's a good thing, because guys are comfortable within the system. They're comfortable with the guys that they're next to, and chemistry on the line, whether it be offense or defense, is such an underrated part of the game, because you have to know which holes to fill. You have to know which gaps guys are going towards. It's such a key piece. And for Robert Saleh, a guy that, again, is so good at being able to rotate guys in and out, I think that is something that San Francisco is really going to miss. Now, they might not change that too much. I'm not totally sure on who's going to be the defensive play caller there this year. But I think it is something that maybe kind of helped mask it a little bit. Some of those injuries that helped them overcome that. I don't know, though, man. After a while, it feels like when you have something this consistent and you get the research and you kind of figure out, like, this is something that causes this, that being the soft tissue injuries that they've suffered there, it starts to become a point where maybe it's not a theory. Maybe there is actually a science behind it and there could be truth to it.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what unknown or unnamed scientist came into the 49ers organization and said, yeah, this is a nothing burger. Like, if I'm a scientist, which I'm not a qualified or registered scientist, however you get to that, level in life. But you look through this laundry list of an injury report. Let's see, Jacob Cowing with a hip. That's probably some soft tissue in there. Khalil Dinkins is undisclosed. Mikhail Kamara is a knee. I'm trying to think some other ones. Kalon Black, which is a thigh injury. That's some soft tissue.
He's a rookie too. He was just drafted.
Deshaun Stribling out of Ole Miss, another rookie. Hamstring, soft tissue.
First round pick.
Yeah, you're right. Let's see some other ones on this list here. Tatum Bethune is a groin injury. I'd say it's somewhat soft tissue in some aspects. Malik Mustafa, hamstring. There you go. Isaac Garindo, the running back, another soft tissue with the pectoral muscle. Let's see, Andrew Farmer with the back. Another one for a groin. That's soft tissue. There are a few that are undisclosed, which is kind of interesting. Christian Kirk, calf injury, soft tissue. There you go. Mike Evans is quad, another soft tissue. So it just makes you wonder. There is a lot of soft tissue injuries going on in this injury report. It might not be all 27, but I'd say over a majority of them, which again would then validate the point we're all, supporting, which is this EMF thing is a big issue in San Fran.
My question is, was there a scientist at all? That's my conspiracy theory I have. Did they even have a scientist say that was a nothing burger? Did they just make this up? That's what I think happened, just so they didn't have to. I mean, I would assume that it's quite a hassle having to move your practice facilities. And I mean, that's right next to the stadium, right? Too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms.
It just would be one of the biggest cover-ups in NFL history in the last 5 years to say you bring in a scientist and then there are people reporting about it. And because they don't have enough information of what the scientist's name is, to me, that would make me think, all right, there's a little something fishy going on. But you make a good point. Was there ever a scientist?
Makes you wonder. It's funny, too, because I know we talked about the Robert Saleh piece of it. I actually found the quote from a few weeks ago that he said when they asked him about this on Pardon My Take. He said, there's got to be something to that. When you put down an electronic reading in a microwave, it's not doing nothing. Maybe death by a million paper cuts. I don't know. So to me, the guy who had to coach that defense last year, that again, I mean, by the time they played Seattle in that playoff game, it looked like a practice squad out there almost from how many guys were out of that game. It makes you wonder. I mean, if even the former defensive coordinator, who, by the way, had 2 different stints in San Francisco and was there for a long time, is also saying, hey, maybe there's something to it. If you're an owner, you have to listen to that at some point. It almost becomes a feeling of negligence if you don't, because these are guys, their bodies are their livelihoods. That is how they make their money. That is how they make their living. If you're getting to a point to where the coaches are saying it, I don't know what the players are saying, but if the players are maybe kind of saying like, hey, there might be something to this, it almost feels like a negligence to not do something about it at that point.
Yeah, and even you mentioned Robert Saleh's comments there. Last night he was asked about it, and it was one word. He said it's overblown. And
really?
Yeah, he said those words exactly. Said it's overblown. So I'm with you on the first quote that he had from a couple weeks ago, and then for him to say it's overblown last night, I think there's a little something. I don't know. He said it's great for the fans to talk about, which I think is pretty funny because, I mean, in some cases we do talk about it, but I mean, I think there is a little something to it.
Sports fans aren't just looking to find things just to find things. I mean, they do, but not a substation. I mean, and it's not even just that people are making this up. It's been a years on years thing. You can't tell me that it's like there's some things that just happen. Like look at Carolina right now, right? Chris Brazzell gets hurt. Nick Gordon gets hurt. They had another injury, I know, a few days. Like that's a bad luck, right? It's one training camp. This has been multiple years where San Francisco has had a real issue with guys going down with soft tissue injuries. To me, after a while, you can't just chalk that up to irony.
Yeah, I agree on that 100%. But, let's get Connor Nute's thoughts because he'll be joining us here at 9:45. It's not Nute's notes. Well, maybe a little bit because he had the blue and white scrimmage last night. So we'll get Connor Nute's take on the Titans' performance last night at Nissan Stadium and what else Robert Saleh may have in store for this Titans team coming up this season right here on the Weekend Huddle on 102.5 The Game. You hear the music, folks. He's not here in person, but he is on the phone, and that is the Connor Nute for his Nute's Notes version of the Titans blue and white scrimmage last night. We'll get a little more of that, plus maybe his, take on the weekend. Connor Nute with the best return on planet Earth, and that is the Joe Hendry one. That's one of my favorites.
I love that one.
Connor,
it's so good.
Connor, how are you, man?
Yeah, it's a long-awaited return. You guys just couldn't get away from me. I tell you, I'm going away for the foreseeable future on Saturdays, and the next week you call me, hey, can you come on? You just miss me that much, I guess.
It was more of you came up to me on yesterday's show and said, hey, you got a guest for tomorrow? I was like, you. And I was like, okay. So then we went about our day. So, but yeah, what's up? What's cracking? What happened last night?
Nothing much, man. I mean, I talked a lot about it last night, but for starters, if you're looking for the perennial, oh my God, Cam Ward day, last night was that day. He was incredibly accurate, found a lot of open passes, just made some of those throws that made you think, yeah, this guy was the number one overall pick. The connection between Carnell Tate was there. I'm sure you guys saw it on the socials circulating around. Carnell Tate's one-handed grab, which was unbelievable, happened right in front of me. It was awesome. Found Gunnar Helm in the back of the end zone, which Gunnar Helm is getting pretty involved in this offense. I'm excited to see how they use the tight ends because, as we know, the Brian Daboll system isn't super tight end focused, but they're using them. So that is interesting to me. And, he's finding open receivers. The Wan'Dale Robinson connection is something to keep your eye on. They love working across the middle with each other. Carnell Tate, obviously. Didn't see a lot of action from Calvin Ridley last night, which I don't know what that entails. I think Calvin Ridley may be in the phase of his career, at least on this team, where he can take the back seat. Not that he's not going to be a decent contributor to this offense, but he doesn't have to be your end-all, be-all wide receiver one anymore. That's why you drafted Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate needs to take that role. And by all accounts and by my own eyes, it seems like he's taking that role and he's running with it. Now, I want to see it against a real NFL team that's not your inner squad. We may not even find out next week with 20 of the 49ers players being out. They're going to be playing against the future practice squatters and maybe even more with that electrical substation. But you want to see the offense start to develop, and Carnell Tate is a forefront of that. I mean, defensively, pretty good day. The scoring was a little bit weird on how that worked, but good day from them. Jeffrey Simmons with a sack on Cam Ward. Marcus Harris broke up a pass to, I guess, win the game for them. It was like 9-8 because the scoring was weird. But yeah, overall, pretty good day. Some good positives to come out from the Titans blue-white scrimmage last night.
Connor, it felt like one of the biggest stories that I saw, especially on social media last night, was Cam Ward. A lot of people saying that this was arguably the best day that we've seen from him in a Titans uniform in terms of practice and inter-squad scrimmages and things of that nature. I know we've talked a bit about the inconsistencies with him, but what do you feel like separated his performance in the scrimmage last night to what you've maybe seen from him so far in camp the first 2 weeks?
It was the accuracy for sure. Like I told you, he was complete last night. You started to see the mentality of Cam Ward and the talent of Cam Ward come together and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. You saw some things from him that I was like, oh yeah, this is why they drafted him number one overall. Just because, you saw the passes from him, some of the throws that not a lot of quarterbacks in this league can make, and he made them accurately. And some of that is on the receivers that got open. Carnell Tate, an elite route runner in this league, or I think we'll get to the point where he is. Wan'Dale Robinson is the safety blanket. Gunnar Helm is the safety blanket. And then you have Jim DK and Alec Guyman who are playing up to their level. If they're the floor of this wide receiver room, I would say you've got a pretty good floor. So consistency was the thing for me last night. And honestly, he didn't have any designed run plays, not that I saw, but there were times where Cam Ward read the defense and saw, okay, none of my reads are open. I have the opportunity to take off and run and gain a few. And he did that. He did that smartly. Obviously, you're not going to be hit in a practice. That's why you wear a red non-contact jersey. And if you are hit, then that's probably on the defense. But there were smart decisions from him. He knew when to run out of bounds. He knew when to slide and do things like that. So it's the mental awareness of Cam Ward that I saw last night that I think overall gave him a really good night.
Yeah, Connor, to expand on that a little bit, last night in the press conference, Robert Saleh was asked about the defensive pursuit angles of just the checkdowns to Tony Pollard. He was basically saying we're going to play zone defense and just take what the defense gives you. I mean, that seems to be a little bit of a concern with the guy like Robert Saleh who likes to play fast and violent, because that's just open to more susceptible opportunities for the defensive line to get beat over the top.
Yeah, I don't know. This pass rush is so aggressive, and they come at you fast, and they come at you violent, hence fast and violent. They're so fast and, just determined to make a play. But I told you this before, Nick, that I think the inside linebacker room has been a surprise of the camp. And I don't know why I'm surprised, because they were surprised of the camp last year, and they've only added to that room. Cody Barton and Cedric Gray are probably going to be your two guys inside to start. But the back half of that room, at least for the first team, and James Williams and Anthony Hill, they seem like they're both ahead of schedule. Anthony Hill, I think, was a great pick. Well, you and I talked about this when it happened. Anthony Hill, probably my favorite pick of that draft, just because I like the high ceiling that he has. And, Saleh's compared him to Fred Warner. He's got some Fred Warner traits. If you have Fred Warner traits, chances are you're going to be a pretty good inside linebacker in this league. So inside linebacker is something that I think can help them in that aspect. And beyond that, you have the corner room. And it's not a deep room, but I think the three guys that you have out there to start off, Taylor, Flott, and Williams, are all capable guys. And Marcus Harris, too. They're all capable guys. Alontae Taylor has surprised me playing on the outside, just because I think he's not used to that position, but he's held his own there. And, Cordell Flott, Marcus Harris can pick up the slack where they need to. So pursuit angles, I understand your concern, because they can get beat over the top, but the good thing is you have the backup behind them to stop that.
Connor Nute is with us on Weekend Huddle. Connor, I know we've had a few, standouts that we've been talking ad nauseum about. Io Manor, obviously, being someone who's been top of that list. Carnell Tate, you mentioned Anthony Hill Jr. as well. But maybe outside of some of those obvious guys, has there been anyone that has stood out to you who we maybe aren't talking about enough, who has had a really good camp, someone who's maybe been a bit under the radar?
As far as camp is concerned, it goes day by day. Last night, Nick Singleton had a really good day. Big run from him. It probably should have been a touchdown, but I guess for practice sake, they blew it dead. So Nick Singleton is a guy I got my eye on. I think he has the intangibles and the skill level to overtake that running back position over Tajay Spears, who, I think we know at this point what Tajay Spears is. Defensively, I kind of talked about him earlier, but James Williams has been making some plays out there. I'm sure you guys saw this. A one-handed interception from him, I think it was Tuesday, and it was a bad day for Mitch Trubisky, but one-handed interception, and he just kind of makes plays. Like, it doesn't have to be the sexy interceptions or the forced fumbles. He's there to make the tackle. So if you're asking me for guys on both sides of the ball, I would probably go Nick Singleton on the offensive side and then James Williams on the defensive side for sure.
Connor, we appreciate it, man. If you want to follow Connor Nute's coverage, you go on 1025 The Game, and Connor Nute is the man for your Titans coverage. And anything else coming up on the horizon for you there, Connor?
Well, we got practice tomorrow. It's 10:15, open to the media, so I'll keep you posted on that. And then, next week off to Santa Clara. So I won't be out there. I have some obligations that I need to fulfill here. His name is Adam Vingen. But tomorrow we got practice, and it's the last time we'll be out there until they go out to San Francisco in the electrical substation.
Absolutely. Get your tinfoil caps on. I appreciate the time, Connor. We appreciate you. You can catch Connor Nute on the 6th, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Connor, appreciate it, man, and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, boys. Yeah, you sound fantastic. Brandon, congratulations, man. You're killing it. I've been listening pretty much all morning. You fit that role nicely. I'm proud of you, son.
Hey, appreciate you, Connor. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you later.
Connor Nute. Thank you, brother. Connor Nute joining us here to talk a little bit of Titans, but yeah, he makes some good points from last night. Now, I mean, I'm still a little concerned with the fast and violent idea that Saleh has for this defense, because there is that susceptibility of, those, checkdowns that are in the flats. Like that's the big issue, because then majority of your guys are already downfield, and you leave that space open to cut back into the middle of the field for some big chunk plays. So we'll see what happens on that front. But we're switching gears on the weekend huddle for a different type of huddle. I guess you'd say the college huddle of the world. We'll get into more of that right here in hour number 2 on 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2 of the weekend huddle, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier, alongside Brandon Bigsby and Christian Skelton, as we dive a little bit into more of the college football aspect of the world. And there's something you brought up to me, Brandon, before the show, and that's Purdue's athletic director, Tommy McClend, who said, what was that? If you want to win championships, go to Indiana?
Yeah, if you want to win championship, or he said basically that, and this is paraphrasing, that here we're going to have the standard of winning national championships. So if you don't want that, don't come here. That's what Indiana is for.
And I think that one-liner did not land. If we're talking about a private airplane that doesn't land, that is a one-liner that did not land at all. And it's funny because he went on McAfee and clarified his statement. He goes, look, we're here to win, and we're going to make every program great at Purdue. But he said, my one-liner on the in-state rival joke did not land well. We're going to build programs here that are better at winning championships than my own one-liner joke. So, I mean, at least he admits to it. I mean, do you have any issue with it?
Absolutely, I do. I have multiple issues with it. And
I don't.
Really?
I have no issue with it at all, but continue.
Okay, so this is my first problem with it. I'm fine with a player saying that. I'm fine with a coach saying it. I do have an issue with an athletic director saying that, because I don't think that that is what the athletic director is there for. And I get it. It's your introductory speech. You want to come in, you want to make a statement. I get all of that. But to me, if you were the athletic director and a lot of what your job is premised around being able to fundraise and make money and being a representative for your athletic programs, not only do I need you going out and saying, hey, if you don't want to win national championships, then don't come here, but to be tone deaf to call out your biggest rival who just won a national championship is bizarre to me. And the part to me, Nick, that makes it even worse, I looked this up last night because I was curious, and I was like, okay, look, maybe I'm being a little bit hard on the guy. You know, he's trying to come in, he's trying to, make this into something that people can remember. So I looked up the national championship history of both Indiana and Purdue. Purdue has 4 total national titles across all sports. Their last one was in 2010 women's golf. The other ones prior to that, 1999 women's basketball, 1961 men's golf, and 1932 the men's basketball team. Indiana's programs have 25 national championships. So to me, this would be the equivalent of Vanderbilt having a new athletic director coming in and saying, you want to win national championships, come to Vanderbilt, because back in Knoxville and Tennessee, they don't do that. To me, I don't need my athletic director going out and making statements saying that we are a national championship standard here before you've come in and done anything. I think that's what the coaches are for. I think that's what the players are for. I don't need the athletic director who, by the way, I think athletic directors have had an epidemic of making themselves the main character. And I think that's another problem with this. I don't need that from him. And then to not even stand on it on top of that. Might as well stand 10 toes down after you said it.
Yeah, he definitely retracted his statements. But to me, it says that he has the buy-in process of the culture he's trying to establish at Purdue. That's what I'm all in for on that. I had no issues with him, saying those comments. But again, to your point, yeah, be 10 toes down on what you say and don't retract it back on McAfee's show. But am I wrong for saying that I agree with him taking the jab? Might as well, right? Am I wrong, Christian?
I mean, I get it from where you're coming from because you want to generate some buzz in any way you can. There were definitely better ways he could have done that. But the idea of, hey, I'm a new athletic director at Purdue. Let me try to get the guys excited. I don't know if he did that. I don't know how Purdue fans feel about this. But personally, I'm loving this moment because I hate the Purdue University and everything it stands for. So I'm very excited about this, and I love everything about this, and that the egg is all over their face right now. And I almost made this comparison that Bigsby did, and since Bigsby did it, I'm glad I don't have to now because, Tennessee bias would have become a whole thing. So since Bigsby did it, I don't feel as bad now. But yes, it would have been very similar to that. But the folks in charge at Vanderbilt now are smart enough to not say something as stupid as this.
And I think the biggest irony is that Tommy McClelland was at Vanderbilt for 3 years. From 2020 to 2023, he worked as the deputy AD of external affairs. And I think that's the other piece of this, right? Because the first thing that I thought of when I saw this was obviously the famous Kurt Cignetti quote, I win, Google me. I don't like Ohio State. We're going to beat those guys. I don't have a problem with that, A, because he's a coach, and B, Curt Cignetti, what he said, there was actual proof of concept behind it. He wanted James Madison. He wanted Elon. He wanted the Division II level. Tommy McClellan, there is no proof of concept that he has been able to go to a program and turn them around. He was at Vanderbilt during their worst years. He was at Rice the last few years. I can't really say a whole lot about what I've known that Rice has been able to do. He was at Louisiana Tech a little bit before that. That's not really a program athletically that's known to do a whole lot. So to me, to come out and say, this is the standard. Now to say this is the standard we want to build, that's one thing. But to say this is what we are when there is no proof that that's what you are, and on top of that, to call your shot to your rival program who has had more success than you, not just in the past, but just won a national championship in football, is tone deaf and to me kind of obtuse. I get what he's trying to do. I just don't know if it is the right messenger to send that message. If it's a coach, sure, go for it. I don't know if the athletic director going out and calling their shot at Indiana is going to get everyone right. Like, man, we need to get behind this guy and really get Purdue athletics. I just don't see what it does other than create a massive ruckus that you don't need and get your tenure started off on the worst foot possible.
I think it also builds the Big Ten fodder of like, are they the best conference? And with that being said, I think if you have athletic directors like this that are being very extroverted with their words, I think that adds on to the mantra of maybe the Big Ten does have the best of the best, athletes in this conference, which I think we're all in agreement for the most part. They're not there yet. Obviously, yes, they have won national championships in football the last 3 of the 4 years, right? Like they've had those opportunities. But when you look at it, when I look at it from this perspective, I think we're on just two different sides of the coin with this. I think it's more of Tommy is trying to set the culture. And yes, there's no substance behind his comment, which is, not a promising thing to have if you're an athletic director, if you're a high school athlete pursuing Purdue University as a, next venture for your college career. I would just look at it from the deep postseason runs. And again, this is not championships, but look at it from the deep postseason runs and see what they can do. And also if they end up having a women's, I don't know what women's sports they have there. I know they definitely have basketball. If they have women's basketball, or let's say a soccer team win a championship within the next 2 years, I think that obviously it definitely would validate his comments. Let's not get that twisted, but yet I don't think it still carries the same weight like you're talking about.
Yeah. And by the way, I found the exact quote and it almost sounds worse now. If you don't want to win championships, go to Indiana. Purdue may not be the place for you. I have an issue with that because Purdue's last major national championship was during the Great Depression. It was 1932. And I get it. I get what he's trying to do, but wrong team, wrong messenger, wrong time. Couldn't have picked a worse possible time on top of it. And then again, he mentioned that it was an off the cuff comment. If you look at the video, he's reading a paper.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's off the cuff or not. If we were sitting here in this segment instead, we were both like, man, did you hear what Tommy McClellan said? That was awesome. Do you think he'd be walking this back? I don't.
I mean, he walked it back on the McAfee show, which I was kind of surprised about. But to the point that you made there in the statement that he read there, his little one-liner, if you want to win championships, go to Indiana. And that means you're not suited for our programs. I think, again, that goes back to my initial point of he's trying to set the culture at Purdue. It's just unfortunate that the one-liner he used did not have the substance underneath it to back his comments. So, it's like building a house without a foundation. Like, what are we doing? We're just basically building a yacht in this case. It's a boat that's going to be on water. There's not a solid foundation. So, he might be trickling down the river.
It'd be one thing if he just said, like, hey, if you want to be a winner, come to Purdue. If you want, just not take a direct shot at Indiana. And the fact that the direct shot he took is literally saying, hey, this team that just won the national championship in football, which is, I think most people would say, the most important college sport there is. Hey, they just won the national championship. But if you don't want to win a national championship, go there. It's like what planet do you live on?
Yeah, like he could have easily used the Drew Brees route of like, if you want to be a Hall of Famer in your sport, come to Purdue.
Right.
Because he's a Boilermaker. That's where he made his career and went off to the NFL. Use that line. Don't use championships. Like, and I'm not walking back what I said. I still think what he said was valid to the point of if you're trying to establish a culture, make it, strong and to the point. He did that. It was just more of a one-liner that didn't work out. So if I'm him, I would have gone a different route of like professionalism. We're all about, getting the student athlete the, proper education they need to pursue their professional career.
And I think this is where you and I kind of maybe fall in a different line. For me, and I get what you're saying. You want to set the standard of what the culture of Purdue is going to be. I get that. And I used the Vanderbilt comparison earlier. I'll use it here again. I think there is a difference in trying to set the standard of your culture through words and setting it through action. And to me, to go out and say, if you want to win championships, come to Purdue. If you don't want to win them, go to Indiana. It's bad enough because they just won a championship, obviously. But show me. I don't want you to tell me that the championship standard is Purdue. I want you to go out and tangibly show me that that is what it is. Because to me, that's what a culture is. It is action. Like Kirk said earlier, you can go out and say, you want to know what I do? I win. Google me. I win football games. That is what I do. That is what I have known for. And he can say that because he proved it at James Madison. He proved it at Elon. He proved it at Division II. And then what did he do after he said that? Indiana goes 12-1, makes the college football playoff. Then the year after, they go undefeated and win the national championship. And I just don't feel like you can say something like that now and not back it up. It puts immense pressure on your coaches, who, by the way, it's his fate that decides their next job security. So I don't like that, because to me, it sets a standard. It puts bad attention that you really don't need on really a lot of the programs at Purdue outside of men's basketball, which has been a powerhouse for a while. I will give them that. I don't like the light that it puts them in. And I don't like the pressure that it now puts on the people under him to have to back up the comments that he said that were baseless.
Now let's twist it this way. Say Indiana doesn't produce this year in football or basketball, and Purdue beats them in, standings in the Big Ten. Obviously, it doesn't validate what Tommy said at the podium, but does that also devalue the comments that maybe, you had Kurt Scanetti say a couple years ago? I get they won the national title. I get that. And again, at the time, very bold of him to say that, because taking a jump from the G5 at the time to the Power 4, huge jump.
Yeah.
Bold words for him to say. Obviously, now he's won a national title. He can back up those words that were said. Tommy can't, because there's no substance underneath him on that. But let's say in this case, if Indiana ends up slumping this year and Purdue is kind of in the same, equator of them as well, like 500 or a little bit better, does that, I wouldn't say validate, but does that help out his case a little bit?
No, not at all to me. And the reason that is because when you say something like that, what Indiana does doesn't matter in this equation. Indiana can go 0-12. And to me, it changes nothing about the comment that Tommy McClellan said, because it's based on your own success. It is based on what your programs are able to go out there and do. Are they able to produce? Even let's say they don't win a national championship. Let's just say that they're competitive. Let's say that they're in the hunt in the Big Ten for football, and they're in for basketball, and they're in for women's basketball or baseball. To me, what Indiana does doesn't matter that much, because Indiana already has validation. They've gone out, they've won the national championship in football. They're a blue blood on the basketball side. They have a good women's basketball program. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. It is Purdue who has to prove themselves, not just to everyone else, but even to a certain extent themselves. Because to me, I don't think it should matter to them what Indiana does. It should matter, how can Purdue be the best version of Purdue that it can be? And like I said, I used the Vandy comparison earlier. Vandy proved themselves. They went out, they changed the culture through action, through hiring the right people, from making the right investments. And I think that's why Candace Story-Lee has been so highly praised, because she went out and did it, and you not one time heard her say, Vanderbilt is about to take over the state of Tennessee. The guys up in Knoxville, they aren't ready for what's coming. You want to win championships? Come to Vanderbilt. Not once did you hear anyone from Vanderbilt say anything like that. And I have no problem with confidence. I have no problem with shooting your shot. But to not only do it, but to also deflect it towards another program that's your rival, and it's a program that has been head and toe above you in just about every single sport, that's what I have a problem with, especially from an athletic director, because now it takes the coaches that you could potentially fire to clean up your own mess. That's where I have an issue with it.
The only person at Vanderbilt that said anything remotely close to that was Diego Pavian. You know what? He's a player, and also he backed up every word of it. So
it's different from a player or a coach. I'm fine with it from them, not the athletic director.
Yeah, you're right. Pavia went into Tennessee and would you say boat raced him in a roundabout way?
The second half was a boat race.
Yeah.
They just gave up in the second half. It was very sad to see for myself, but what can you do about it now?
Right. Mitch on the text line here says, Mitch in Bellevue says, also, I'm a Purdue fan. I also find this very embarrassing. And he says, why do all these athletic directors and new coaches feel like they have to cut a wrestling promo these days?
You tell me, brother.
That's a great line by him. It's all just everybody's got to have a sound by it, man.
You know what? To kind of keep the wrestling references going, a message to all of the athletic directors: know your role and shut your mouth. We don't always have to get that, man. We don't. Just show up, say you're happy to be here, say we want to bring this to the best it possibly can be, and leave it. Why do the ADs have to become the main character so much? Especially within the last few. I don't get that. I don't.
Well, I mean, I guess use Tennessee in this reference. Danny White wanting an expansion.
Triple collar Danny.
Yeah, he wants the college football expansion. And like, to me, and his dad even had a book that came out, 2 years ago, give or take. I have that book and I've read it, and it doesn't add up to the equation of what he's trying to preach at Tennessee. His dad was never about that. And now you're wanting expansion. And I get there's a lot of money to be had at the table, but if you expand the playoff, you're going to just dilute your product. And what does that say as an athletic director like you? You don't have that true command. I mean, you have the command of your staff, but you don't have that confidence behind you. Kind of like to what Tommy McClellan here is saying, is that like, you want to win championships, don't go to Indiana, or don't come here, go to Indiana. I think the same thing kind of says the same thing for Danny White in this case of like going to, college football playoff. Well, if you want to go to college football playoff, let's expand it so we can go 8-4. And like, to me, it just tells me that all they have is Josh Heupel. And Joe Dubin's always mentioned this. Who else would they get if they go to fire him? There isn't really anybody. So the only option they have is to expand rather than to keep what they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the playoff expansion thing with Danny White is more so of a kind of like you were saying, but I think it's more so of just him trying to look out for his own university, which I mean, I get, but I think it would make more sense to me if that was coming from Heupel, because if you're Josh Heupel in that scenario, obviously you want the playoff to expand, because if it's easier to get in, it's probably a better chance you're going to keep your job. Even if Tennessee went 9-3 3 years in a row and just couldn't get over the hump, if Tennessee made the playoffs all 3 of those years, I don't think Josh Heupel's going anywhere. So it would make more sense to me from a Josh Heupel standpoint. But for Danny White, I mean, I guess it's just, hey, we'd get the revenue for making the playoff, because at the end of the day, Danny White has done a good job as Tennessee athletic director, I would say. But at the end of the day, all he cares about is money. His nickname is Danny Dollars for a reason.
Danny Dollars.
That's most ADs though, right? I mean, that's what they do. They fundraise. They're supposed to kind of bring exposure and money into the program. They're a representative, right? So, I mean, I get it from that perspective. It makes sense to want to expand because that's what's beneficial for your program. It's what's beneficial for your university. So I can understand that aspect of it, but I also understand a lot of the qualms with Danny White as well, because the Danny Dollars nickname, I think it has been earned to an extent. So I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mitch on our text line definitely is one text of the day, unless there are others. You can always call in or text in 615-737-1025, our Wilson County Hyundai phone lines. Hey, we're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Heating and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hey, and today, just want to let everybody know, on 102.5 The Game, catch the Arena Crown Championship as the Nashville Cats take on the Albany Firebirds at F&M Bank Arena. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. and coverage will begin at 2:30, only on 102.5 The Game, as always. And you can catch the TV broadcast with Joe Dubin and Chase McCabe on Vice. And in the radio broadcast, you'll have myself and Jake Lyman. So
love those two guys.
Yeah, I know one of those guys, right? Yeah. So it'll be a fun time out there at F&M Bank Arena for the Arena Crown Championship. Tyler Kolka, talking about wrestling promos, run wild on you, brother. Kolka-mania. Guy's over 3,000 yards. I mean, it was crazy last week to see Malik Henry, the Netflix documentary Last Chance U quarterback, threw like I think 10 or 11 touchdowns for like 480 plus yards. It
And that was in a losing effort, wasn't it?
It was, it was in a losing effort. I'm like, what is going on? They had a kid get called for pass interference in the stands. He stripped the ball away from a player.
I was producing that game for them, Brandon. That was the funniest moment I've maybe ever seen in my entire life, because awesome. Michigan's coach was about to kill somebody on the sideline. It was so good.
It is just absolutely wild. But yeah, if you want to go out there today, go to F&M Bank Arena, or go to Nashville Cats website to go buy some tickets. I hear it's a very limited amount of tickets, because they're, if not, they probably got rid of all the tickets. I mean, it's a packed crowd today from what I've heard.
Title game.
It is.
Crown a champion.
It's a championship game. Go to championship games, because those teams have made it for a reason. And so Darren Arbett's looking for his 5th ring. He had to fill up that whole entire hand there. But we'll get into more football here on the other side. We were talking to Vandy and Tennessee. Danny White, Danny Dollars. Does Vandy have a little bit of some quarterback controversy going on? I know, Tennessee may have a little quarterback controversy, but does Vandy have a little quarterback controversy? We'll get into that right here on 102.5 The Game on the Weekend Huddle. Right here, 102.5 The Game. Did not request this, but I could get down with it.
Little Ella action.
I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed. I'm an Ella fella. I'm cool with it.
I always know Frazier loves his Ella, and I figured I was like, you know what? Let's play something nobody plays around here. Everybody's probably playing Choose in Texas and weren't for the win. I was like, we'll play something a deeper cut, probably not a deep cut, but deeper cut. You know,
Parker is going to be very disappointed that he was not in here to hear this.
Hey, all right, little hang on, tangent for a quick second.
Okay,
Parker, Kelly, and I, we bonded over the Ella fella monster of all this, listening to the music, great whatever. I told him, like, dude, you need to go to this concert. Go to the Ella concert. Like, CMA Festival was fantastic. I told him, like, 2-3 days beforehand, tickets are cheap. Get them while you can. He waited to the last minute. Tickets were not cheap. I was like, look, man, that's on you. And he can be an LFL all he wants, but, man, if you're an LFL, you got to go to a concert. You got to go. So I think in October, I think she's in Knoxville. I was like, you better go.
Okay.
You better go. Until then, I'm not taking away his LFL card, but I'm definitely – so
there's a membership for all of this.
There's not a membership, but at the same time, like, come on, man. Like, if you're a diehard LFL, at least go to one concert, right?
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. If you're going to claim it and you're going to claim the fandom to that level, you probably do have to go to that's like, and don't get me wrong, concerts are not cheap, especially someone like Ella Langley who has become so popular. But if you're going to claim it, you got to live it, right?
Exactly. And that's why you got to be able to scalp the tickets. Like, I got mine for $55. Like, wow. Yeah, I definitely got it for a good price. Like, initially I bought never mind. We'll go on a different thing. But no, like Luke Combs, big Luke Combs fan. And he had I think it's Friday night concerts or the cheaper concerts. And it's the same concert on Saturday. Got it for $75 in club level at Nissan Stadium. I was like, that right there, that was a good concert. They played a little Diamond Rio, Meet Me in the Middle cover. I'm like, all right, give me more of that.
Okay,
but sticking with Nashville real quick, we're talking about sports for a little bit. We're talking a little bit of culture, whatever. But big question in college football, and that's Vanderbilt. And I know they paid Jared Curtis a lot of money. I know Faison Brandon is a big topic of conversation in Knoxville. But Brandon, would you be, and you're a Vandy fan, right?
Yeah.
Would you be concerned if Jared Curtis doesn't start this season?
This season, yes. If he does not start to open the season, I would not be. And this is why. I feel like with Jared Curtis, he's a young guy coming in. He's a true freshman. It's not often nowadays, especially in the era with the transfer portal, where it's so easy to go out and get a guy that started 20-plus games in his career to come into your program and be that guy that takes over the reins. And on top of that, Jared Curtis playing at National Christian School, not necessarily the highest level of competition in Division II single A. So I think some of that has to do with that. You're making that jump from high school in a lower division to having to play in the SEC every single Saturday. So if he doesn't start out as a starter, I'm not going to be concerned. I'm still personally of the opinion that he will, just because it's hard to deny the talent of Jared Curtis. I think that you're almost willing to accept some of the growing pains that will come with starting a freshman quarterback because of that talent. However, if we get to, say, October and he's not starting by then, that's where maybe I become a little bit concerned of, okay, is he not picking up the playbook? Is there something maybe that development-wise is going along a little bit slower than maybe you would have thought before he came onto campus? Those are the things where I would start looking for. But in terms of whether he is the starter in general or whether he starts out the season as the starter, I think those would be two different levels of concern. If he doesn't start the first 3 games, I wouldn't necessarily be disappointed in that. I don't think that will happen. However, I would understand it because he is a young guy, and if you don't think he's ready, you don't want to throw him out there in a situation that will harm his development.
I'd be concerned.
Really?
I would be concerned if he does not start the first game of the season. I'd be concerned if he doesn't start any of the first 3 games of the season, because their first 3 games are at First Bank here in Nashville. They're home games. I mean, all 3 of them are out of conference. You got to win all your out of conference games. I mean, he joined Vanderbilt last season for their bowl practices. I think there's a lot of, should be a lot of stock in that, because you're basically adapting to the college level. You're understanding the playbook. Then you have the full off season. And if the Google machine is correct, $2 million for NIL value. If you're getting paid $2 million, I expect you to play. And that's just me. I'm not no GM. I'm not a head coach. But in this case, your first 3 games, Austin Peay, should be a welcome to the college football world for a guy like Jared Curtis. Your second game is against Delaware, and Delaware is no slouch of a team. They were really good last season. I believe they played MTSU.
Yeah, they did.
And that was a tight game. And then you have NC State. NC State's without Hollywood Smothers, the running back. He's now at Texas. So that was a big departure.
Still got CJ Bailey at quarterback, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I believe so. So they still have a few pieces here and there on that offense. But when you go into a ACC SEC matchup, you don't want to be put into like a gunslinging matchup of offenses. And if you don't have Jared Curtis playing those first two games, how can he truly develop as a freshman quarterback into those big pressured moments?
I think what I would say is I think who the first two games are against is a perfect opportunity to kind of like, I don't want to say baptize him, but I get that's for
test the waters.
Test the waters. Yes, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's a perfect opportunity to just kind of be like, here you go. This is what this looks like. And to where even if he doesn't start, still perfect opportunity to get some good reps in against somebody that's not your own team. And so that way, if you feel like he's comfortable enough but for the NC State game, then it's not as much of a culture shock for him if he goes and starts the NC State game if he hasn't started the 2 weeks before. But I don't know what the point of that would be, because my thing is, if you want him to be your starter this year, which I think Vanderbilt's coaching staff does want that, then wouldn't these two opponents, week 1 and 2, be the perfect opportunity for that?
That's kind of what I was thinking. And like, say they are 3-0 going into conference play after that. You take on Auburn at Jordan-Hare, which is probably the toughest place to play in all the SEC. But you have a new head coach in Alex Golish and a new quarterback in Byron Brown. And basically their entire offense, except for one player, are all transfers. So it makes you think maybe Vandy has the opportunity to sneak one away on the road and get a, air quotes, SEC win there. And then after that, you have Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Kentucky. Like Georgia and Ole Miss, I get those might be, in the L column. But then you have Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Those 3 games, those are potential wins. So you're already at 6 wins at that point if you win your first 3 games. That's why I think it's so crucial for a guy like Jared Curtis to get valuable reps in the first 3 games.
Yeah, and I think that regardless of whether he is named the starter or not, I think he is going to definitely get reps in the first game. It's against Austin Peay. You would hope that Vanderbilt will win that game convincingly, and it will give him that opportunity. Game 2, as you mentioned, Delaware, that's no slouch, but I think that even if they don't name him the starter, he could still get some opportunity in that game. That NC State game, I think, is the big one, to where if you're Vanderbilt, you want to have your starting quarterback locked in. Is it Jared Curtis or is it Blaise Berlowitz? And I do want to say this. I think Jared Curtis will be the starter. Personally, I would be surprised if he isn't. When you give that much investment into a guy, I don't think you're forced to put him out there, but I do think that there is a little bit more pressure to say, hey, we're paying this guy a lot of money. He flipped from Georgia, presumably because he felt like he could be the starter here from year 1. He probably needs to be the starter. And I will say that a lot of the reports coming out of Vanderbilt's camp that just started a little bit over a week ago is that with Jared Curtis, it's almost kind of similar to rookie year Cam Ward. He is able to do things that not a lot of guys are able to do, but it's inconsistent. And you'll see the eye-popping play, but then the next snap, you'll maybe see something where the fundamentals are a little bit off. While Blaise Berlowitz, he's not able to do a lot of the things that Jared Curtis is gifted to do, but he knows the system. He's on time. He's on schedule. He gets it in the right spot. And with Blaise Berlowitz, he has been in this offense now for 3 years. He also, something that people don't know, transferred with Diego Pavia from New Mexico State. So he has 4 years now of being under Tim Beck's offense. So that does give him an advantage. And I think it's just a matter of how comfortable do they feel with Jared Curtis being able to run the offense, run it efficiently, get things on time, and not make mistakes. That's going to be the key for him. Can he limit the mistakes that he makes? If he can do that in camp and leading up to opening game, I think that he should be the starter, but it seems like it's a little bit closer to maybe I probably would have thought this time a few months ago.
Yeah, you make a good point there with Blaise Berlowitz, because he has been in the offense for quite some time. I think another factor into this for Vanderbilt, and it's just they're in uncharted waters. They've never experienced having to pay a quarterback at this magnitude $2 million roughly on his NIL value. That is just it's never been heard of. It's the first of its kind for Vandy. So for them, they just got to work, see if it's going to happen or not. And, that's kind of what they have camp for. As for Tennessee in this case, it seems like it's the Faison Brandon show. And that still blows my mind that, it is Faison Brandon and not George McIntyre.
Does it blow your mind just because of the scenario of like George has been there for 15 months at this point, and Faison's only been there a few, or just because how good George was in high school?
Well, no, it's the hype that was around him in high school. I didn't think he was a top tier quarterback that would be like, changing the offense. I just am surprised that he's been in the system for so long with Tennessee and has been in that kind of the same thing with Blaise Bertolitz, has been in the Heupel offense, understands it, and yet is still struggling to really break away from, the second and third tier to be that starting quarterback.
I think they're different in similar situations at the same time. I think they're different because 4 years of experience is a lot different than a little over a year compared to, obviously Jared Curtis and Faison Brandon are in the same of like, they just got on campus compared to who they're going up against. But then I think they're similar just from the fact of, it seems like Jared Curtis and Faison are both like the more talented players in their scenario, and like who, if you asked each fan base who do they want it to be and like who do they see as the quarterback of the future for their program, I think Vanderbilt fans would definitely say Jared Curtis, and then I think 95% of Tennessee fans would say Faison Brandon. So it's interesting how the two, SEC programs in the state are kind of dealing with similar situations here.
It is interesting too, I think, with George McIntyre, just because with McIntyre, at least to me, and Christian, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too, just because I know you follow Tennessee so closely. It feels like there's not really been the jump in development from George McIntyre. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the country in his class. He was a 5-star recruit. He commits to Tennessee, and it felt like he had the rough junior year at BA. Last year, he was okay. They made the state title game, obviously, but that felt like that was not because of him, but that was a really deep and loaded team. He felt like he would have taken a step up, and then he comes in freshman year, red shirts, was okay, showed some flashes. You felt like there would have been maybe a bigger jump in development from him, and it almost feels like that's what's holding him back a little bit compared to Faison Brandon, who's come in and has shown all the potential in the world.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the main thing. I mean, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think George is still like 203. I might have talked about line. I don't remember. I think George is still only like 203 pounds, which, I mean, hey, it's basically what I am right now too, but I'm not trying to be a starting SEC quarterback. So, and, you look at Faison, he's 18 years old, and he already looks like Cam Newton basically. So, I mean, just from the looks department, poor George is just getting, are we allowed to say mogged on the radio? He's getting mogged all over the place when you just look just from the looks department. And I mean, yeah, it definitely seems like to me that Faison has a leg up. And I mean, it's what I've heard. At this point, I think I would say I would be shocked if George McIntyre ends up winning the starting job. Now, that first game gets Furman. I definitely think you're still going to see, I don't know if 2 quarterbacks the entire game, but at least a majority of the game. Well, for the Furman game, probably the whole game, 2 quarterbacks. And then I think you'll finally see Heupel name a starter right before Georgia Tech. If I was to predict it right now, that's what I would predict.
All right, book it, folks.
I want to ask you guys something real quick. I know we got to go to break, but I'm curious. Would you rather go 8-4 with the veteran quarterback whose ceiling is capped, or would you rather go, say, 5-7 or 6-6 with the freshman quarterback, but he gets a critical year of development?
See, if you said like 8-4 or 7-5 with the freshman quarterback, I'd have said sign me up for that. But 6-6.
It kind of feels like that's where both sides are at, right?
I mean,
Vanderbilt, they might be a little better with Berlowitz, but it's so important to get Curtis. Same thing with Tennessee.
And I mean, Tennessee just did an 8-4 with a veteran quarterback who's already has a ceiling cap to him. So
back to Danny White. Expand the playoff to stay 8-4 of mediocrity. I don't know. For me, I would go with the 6-6 for the freshmen. My only concern would be when I call them franchises. They're not franchises. They're universities, but with the money involved, it feels like franchises. For Vanderbilt, if that is the case, don't overindulge on getting offensive weapons for your freshman quarterback, because that's what puts you in the hole. Because then and I'm not saying Clark Lee does this because he's a defensive-minded coach, but then the defense kind of gets neglected and forgotten about in the offseason, and you don't really attack the portal like you should. And again, it's uncharted waters for Vanderbilt. How are they going to balance this out when it comes to after the season if Curtis is that starter for that 6-6 season potentially?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that the development of the young quarterback is just so crucial. I think getting him out there, getting him that experience, you can only learn so much sitting on the sideline watching. You have to be able to go out there, feel it. Experience is the best teacher. That's the old saying, right? Get him out there, get him that experience. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be mistakes that you're going to have to deal with and coach out of it, whether that's Jarrett Curtis or Faison Brandon. They're both going to have to grow into becoming that guy. But I think you have to give them that opportunity.
Absolutely. We, I guess we're running a little tight on time, and I think it's time to light the fire a little bit, light the candlestick. The Gap Band. I texted you guys the other day about when I was at the market. They were playing awesome. Gap Band. What a crazy time that was. Before we go to break today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Memphis Redbirds. First pitch is at 6:35. Catch all the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina. The Memphis Redbirds are the AAA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals last night won 3-2, just FYI. But we will get to the Where Are They Now portion of the show coming up next on Weekend Huddle, 102.5 The Game. You know that music, a Gap Band, the what Tiny Desk version, is that right?
Yeah, the Tiny Desk version of Outstanding.
Oh, it's incredible. And you know what's even more incredible? Where are they now? And it is probably one of the best games on these airwaves, minus celebrity birthdays. And I'm ready for it. And because it is the first show, Brando, I will give you the honors. So please, I allow you to crack open the whip.
Thank you so much. Let's get things going. All right, we're going to go towards the NFL for this one. This player played for the following teams: the St. Louis/Los Angeles Rams, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings again, the Seahawks again, the Vikings again, then the Seahawks again. He is currently an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
The offensive coordinator hint's a good one, but I still don't know if it really helped me a ton.
And he was a player?
Yes, he was a quarterback.
Okay, quarterback. I almost just said Kevin O'Connell. He's a head coach. That's a terrible guess.
He is on that Viking staff.
Oh, yes.
No. Carolina, maybe. No? Okay. Oh.
All right, I'll make this an official
It is
guess.
an NFC team.
This is an official guess. Kellen Moore.
Not Kellen Moore.
Okay.
That's a good guess.
I know the guy he's talking about has he has a home plate shaped jaw with a whatchamacallit.
What a description. That was
blonde
incredible.
hair. Oh my goodness, what's his name? McCown, I think.
You got the M right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not Josh McCown.
Would you like his college? Would that help?
Maybe.
He played at Oregon State. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2015.
Not Brandon Whedon.
Yeah, Brandon Whedon was Oklahoma State.
He
He was the other
Oklahoma State.
OSU.
Yeah. Close, yeah.
Oklahoma State. It's not Brock Osweiler. He's still playing.
Was he in Oregon? I don't think he was in Oregon State.
No, not Oregon State, though, no.
I know we're short on time, so I'll tell you. He is the Eagles offensive coordinator.
I don't even know it.
It's that Manning guy, whatever.
Yeah, Sean Mannion.
Yeah, Sean Mannion. I should have got that. He's with Green Bay previously, I think.
Yeah, he was. He was their quarterbacks coach last year with Jordan Love. So
go ahead, Christian.
All righty. This is a pretty simple one to start us out on the gridiron. Atlanta Falcons, Indianapolis Colts.
Wow, I was expecting more teams.
Yeah. I guess sometimes less teams can kind of make you overthink a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Falcons Colts. Current player?
Retired player.
Oh, okay. Falcons Colts.
Retired as of 2022.
I'm just going to throw it out there. Tevin Coleman?
Not quite.
Falcons
Am I on the right track with it being an offensive player?
You are.
Okay.
If I give the exact position, this might even give it away saying this. It would give it away if I gave you the position.
Oh, Matt Ryan.
He is correct.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I forgot he played for the Colts.
It was a very forgettable time.
That one, the Colts part makes it a little tricky for sure.
I mean, he was pretty good with the Colts, like I said before during the show. But let's see here. Let's stick with the gridiron. Defensive side of the ball went to Syracuse, drafted in the 1st round, 11th overall in 2002 for the Indianapolis Colts, followed by the San Diego Chargers, Arizona Cardinals, Atlanta Falcons, Seattle Seahawks, and Detroit Lions. Is currently with Syracuse's operations staff as the director of player development. Super Bowl champion, 3-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, NFL sack leader in 2004, NFL forced fumbles co-leader in 2002, NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, PFWA All-Rookie Team in 2002, and is probably will give it away, but he's in the Colts Ring of Honor.
Dwight Freeney?
It is Dwight Freeney.
Hey, there we go.
Wow.
Look at that. What a pull.
Syracuse. Had no idea about that. You know who I am? Marvin Harrison's a Syracuse guy too, isn't he? I know obviously junior was at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think senior went to Syracuse as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong there.
No, you're right. You are correct.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking was Marvin Harrison, because for some reason I always remember he went to Syracuse.
Yeah, he went to Syracuse High School and then followed by Syracuse.
Syracuse underratedly had some really good alumni.
I wonder if he was there at the same time McNabb was. Even if not, I mean, it's around the same time. So, yeah, kind of an underrated NFL feeding ground for a little bit.
We have some time. I'll look it up real quick.
Syracuse AD, You know what to say. If you want to go to the NFL, come to Syracuse. Don't go to anywhere else.
If you want to be in the Colts Ring of Honor, come to Syracuse.
Yeah, come to Syracuse if you want to be in the Colts Ring of Honor. You know, they don't do that at Notre Dame or Boston College or anywhere else.
Yeah. So they played together in college at Syracuse during the '95 season, where McNabb was a freshman quarterback and Harrison was a senior wide receiver.
Wow. Okay, so Harrison was not around for the thriller between Tennessee and Syracuse to open the '98 season.
Yeah,
in the Carrier Dome.
God, that'd been crazy to have those two guys as teammates.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that coaching staff knew what they had on their hands at the time.
No,
probably not.
Probably not. It was Syracuse.
No chance. No chance. I mean, that's what's funny about it, too, is that you don't think of Syracuse of being a good football school because they haven't been the last decade, really. But they have some impressive alumni that have come from there that you just don't think about.
Yeah. You have another one?
Yeah, I got you. I'm going to go basketball for this one. This player played for the following teams: the Toronto Raptors, the San Antonio Spurs, the Chicago Bulls, and the Sacramento Kings. He is currently an NBA free agent.
Lonzo Ball.
Not Lonzo Ball.
That's a good guess.
He had Lakers in there too. Yeah.
This player is a 6-time NBA All-Star.
Russell Westbrook.
Not Russell Westbrook. Go through the teams one more time.
Yeah.
Raptors,
okay,
Spurs, Bulls, most recently with the Kings. He's currently a free agent.
De'Aaron Fox last played for the Spurs, so it can't be.
Yeah, he's not a free.
He was teammates with De'Aaron Fox for a year.
I'm trying to figure out if I can name a Kings player that was on that team not named De'Aaron Fox right now.
I know.
I think Harrison Barnes was on that team, but it's not him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And that's the only other one I got.
He is a forward. He is a forward.
I'm waving the white flag.
Yeah,
DeMar DeRozan.
Oh my gosh. Yep, Raptors.
I was going to say Drake Diston, but that would have been a little bit.
I do not remember him being on that Kings team, though. Wow. Okay.
2 years from 24 to 26, he was there. The Kings they're kind of forgettable post 2003.
This is true.
All very true. Well, I guess we're pressed on time a little bit. Well, first edition of Weekend Huddle with this trio. Not too shabby, right?
Yeah, it was a fun time. I feel bad for the Sean Mannion one. You gave Dwight Freeney, he gave Matt Ryan. I gave an offensive coordinator. I felt bad about that.
No, it was good. Don't feel bad.
I mean, outside the box. I like it.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Before the early editions of this, I was naming off players from Europe. That just did not make sense. So, but yeah, as always, you can catch us 9 to 11 on the Weekend Huddle right here on Saturdays here on 102.5 The Game. Coming up next is ESPN Radio. So we'll see you guys next weekend. Take care. Peace.